Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session on women and investigative journalism, dealing with threats and harassment. And the panelists were saying that we're very encouraged that with 5 other panels going on at right this moment, we still have a great turnout here. So thank you for your interest and look forward to your participation. And with us today, we have 2 distinguished veteran journalists and trainer who will share with us their stories, the challenges they face, and how they dealt with those challenges, and tips, suggestions of what could be done for women journalists to protect ourselves and for newsroom managers to take action to protect their women reporters, right? To my left, right here with Wen Paran.
That's Stella.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. This is my 3rd time. Yeah. Stella Paul from India, right? Yeah. Was an environment and development journalist, and also a trainer. And over there we have Bopa Porn, who's a freelance journalist and also an instructor and a teacher at university. So you have their detailed bios on the site, so I'm not going to repeat it for the interest of time. Let me just start by saying that the safety of women journalists has become a major issue. As the world of journalism become more conflict prone, as journalists are going out to cover the very difficult stories in conflict zones, and journalists face greater threat in all these places. And then we also read about women being under attack, raped, physical assault. We heard those stories. How do we deal with it? Just early this year, the Committee to Protect Journalists published a book in their annual publication, Attack on the Press. They highlighted the issue of gender and media freedom worldwide. And the book talk about the attacks women face. One essay was written by a journalist from Colombia who was raped 16 years ago by men who sought to punish her for her reporting. And so we have faced all these issues. The way we'll do it is we'll have a panelist to start the ball rolling, so to say. They will give a presentation for about 10 minutes about the challenges, about how they've dealt with it, right? And then I will do another round of questions, and then we'll open up to the floor. And I look forward to people to contribute, share your experiences and your ideas, okay? So with that, I give it to Stella. No, Bopa. Right, she will go first. All right. Does it work? Or maybe you want to take this?
Yeah, that's better.
So you don't have to hold it.
Yeah, I don't know. I prefer this so I don't have to hold it. My hand might be shaking. Right?
Have any presentation?
No, I don't. No, I can just use it. Yeah, fine. Hello. Thank you for being here. I mean, I'm not that superior. That mean that I'm sitting here, so that doesn't mean that I'm better than you. I mean, I have a lot of things to learn from you, but I have a little bit of experience to share with you as a journalist. So my name is Bopa, and the full name is Bopa Porn, and I am from Cambodia. I've been working as a journalist for 10 years now. I started with the German presidency, and then I worked for the Cambodia Daily newspaper for 6 years. And then after that, I decided to quit my full-time job and become a freelancer in late 2014, when I also became a professor at a university where I teach journalism. So I am a journalist and also I teach. And in addition to that, I also write fictions. I have my short fictions published in 2012 about pedophilia. So it's a story inspired by my own experience as a journalist. And this month, one of my essays was published in the States and will be launched in October in Canada. And I feature another very famous journalist. She's kind of inspired me to be stronger and to be better. And her name is Elizabeth Baker. So as you may know that being a journalist, a female journalist, is not easy at all. There are many kinds of stories you could do. You could write breaking news. You could write feature stories. You could write enterprise stories that could be different kinds of story. Could be investigations into different kinds of cases. So I started with the breaking news, but what I like more is more kind of enterprise news, which take more time to do. And I like it a lot because I don't think a lot of people would like that. And for me, enterprise news kind of stay in the readers longer, though I think that breaking news is still important because breaking news inform people of what's going on, what's happening around them every day. So we need both breaking news and feature stories. So feature story, or like kind of investigation story, it's a story that you have to do, a story that you kind of try to uncover something that other people do not want you to cover. So it could be, in a way, lead you to some kind of threat, or some kind of, threat in many different forms. Like it could be verbal threat or physical threat. So in my case, because I like to cover the story that other people do not want me to do, first I think it's hard, and I like the hard thing. The second, I have that experience that whenever I try to do the story that other people do not want me to do, and I manage to do it, I get response from different kind of ministry, like Interior Ministry, Foreign Affairs Ministry, which kind of push me even further to work on this kind of story. So it doesn't come easy. Because I work on those kind of story, I got like perhaps 10 to 15 phone calls from high-ranking officials to threaten me, like either bring me to court or I might face some kind of consequence. So those are the things. And then I also face physical threat, where one time 2008, when one of my colleagues was punched in the stomach, and I was freaked out. And the civilian told me to stop being a journalist. They said, "Oh, you look pretty smart, and you look pretty quick. You could do other things like working in a bank, which has an easy life. Better, you don't have to run around like crazy." Then I was just move on. So after that, I think in 2012 was the year that I faced so many threats, like the most threat in my life. So 2012, Cambodia chair ASEAN. ASEAN summit, each country of ASEAN members has to chair the ASEAN meeting, ASEAN summit, every 10 years. So 2012 was the year that Cambodia chaired the ASEAN. And I was one of the reporters at the peace building. My editor sent me there. The peace building is the place where a lot of politicians come and made big decisions. So it's also where many journalists came together and tried to get story. And my editor sent me there because he thought that I was good at trying to get scoop. not breaking news, but scoop, the news that other people do not want to get, or they might not think of. So I asked questions to the Prime Minister, and then the Prime Minister said, he's like, instead of answering my questions, he spent like 2 minutes to just talking about me, like how I should be careful about writing story and stuff. So that's one. And then that same year, I also work on trying to get this pedophilia to be arrested. And he's a Russian millionaire. He's invested like hundreds of millions with Cambodian government, built that bridge, huge bridge, connected like from a province, a very, very, it's a coastal, commercial province into an island. It's like $700 million or something, huge. So he was arrested and put in jail in 2007. I don't know what he did, but then he got his way out after 4 years of serving jail. So basically 2012. Then I got this feeling like something wrong. So I heard that he like kind of bribed at least $1 million to get out. You know, for Cambodia, like it's like a poor country, that's a lot of money. I mean, for some politicians, for some high-ranking officials, that's a lot of money. And you can, some people, I mean, a lot of people could not make $1 million in their life. But that's what I heard. It could be a rumor. Never got it confirmed. Anyway, so I've been working on that, and I freaked out because the guy, he's a pedophilia, and also he has a brother who's kind of like a mafia, Russian mafia. And I think they have my photo or something. So then after my report, the police arrested him and sent him back. I mean, I spent like perhaps 2 months to just test him. And finally, I got him. So the Ministry of Interior extradited him back to Russia. And then after that story, you know, once you get into the success, you feel like it's not enough, you want more. And when it comes to big story, I jump in because I get that feeling, and I know how great it is when you get success in writing your story. So the other story I work on was it's an investigation into a very dodgy, it's not a dodgy, it's very famous, well-known, kind of globally well-known NGO. And I spent like 2 years, started from that year 2012 until late 2013. So I work on that with one of my executive editor. We went to the province to cover the story, and my executive editor and I, we were detained for like 2 or 3 hours by the police, and finally I got my way out. So at the same time, I worked on the story on drug smuggling, which linked to like very high-ranking official. And then after a while, I did not know. Usually, when the Cambodia Daily wrote the story about him, we do not put the name on the newspaper. Like if I work on it, I would not put my name on it because the guy is so powerful and he's so nasty that he has this reputation of rape and kill and smuggling and everything. So my editor, like that day, my editor asked me like, would you like to put your name on it? And I was thinking, if I don't post it now, who's gonna push it? Like, put it on. And the next day, my phone's like ring like crazy. It made me like really, really nervous. So I decided to pick up the phone and answer. And then the guy said, you're writing story about me, blah, blah. You're gonna have your consequence. You watch your back. Tell your editor to watch your back. So my editor's kind of very, very, he nervous because he also knows the guy very well. So he told me to go out of Phnom Penh for a while, like just take 2 weeks off. Not off, if I still want to work, then work in the provinces. So I went to work on this casino kind of game ball in other province for like 2 or 3 days, and I came back and my editor said, oh, you can't stay here, you know, you can't come back, it's just go somewhere else. And then it's like, for me, it's like forest is another bit that I always like to do. So I always write story about forest illegal logging and those kind of things, because I love tree. I think tree is cool, and it makes you feel good and give you like oxygen and stuff. And yeah, so I work, so one of my colleagues, he kind of knows that I'm quite good at investigations. So he asked me to join, and my editor, because he was worried about me, so he said, why don't you join the trip? You know, have fun, do like this great investigation and come back with great story, and also enjoy, you don't have to rush. So we went off to Kokong province, the border between Cambodia and Thailand. So then our second day, we were fighting with a group of military and police and some civilians, which I think they also some kind of soldier. And then they stopped our car and asked the driver, who was one of like these very outspoken and active environmentalist. So then we stopped, and then the kind of like the scuffle between the guy, the activist, and the police kind of started, and it heated up. So the military shot us when I was in the guy. So the activist was killed. And I was lucky because I was quick, like duck down like really fast, and I ran out of the car, like 10 steps. And I saw my other colleagues like ahead of me, but I didn't see the guy. So after 10 steps, I stopped my other colleague and I said, where's the other guy? So I did not see him. I got this like really bad feeling. So I said, let's get back. So my colleague and I, we went back to the place where we got shot at. And the first thing I saw was a military who lied down in front of the car. And other people just ran away. It's only 2 of us came back to the car. So one of the military like lay down on the road in front of the car with the bleed coming out. And I did not see the guy because he's kind of the activist, because he's sat in the chair and he's like kind of like hanging like this. So I came in and see him, and I saw like blood coming out, and he's kind of like choked up, like the kind of the condition of the person who about to die. And no one coming to help the military until I shout to the military and other people like, come help you guy, he's still alive. And then they came and helped him. And then they told us to not move. And we had to stay there for like 2 hours, or perhaps about one and a half to 2 hours, until the other provincial police came to take like kind of to ask me questions. And they did not let us go until like 5, 6 o'clock, until my editor came. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, that's all. Sure, yeah.
Hi. So thank you. Thank you for sharing with us your experience. And as I was listening, your tricks about how to deal with them. So may I sum up? Number 1, not be intimidated. Go ahead with the story. You dare those you. You have to duck very fast sometimes. Duck fast. And if you have to, stay away. Safety first. Not story first. Stay away first. And then one item seems to be very important is you need to know who you're dealing with. So you know who to dare and who to stay away from. All right? Okay. So we'll come back to it. And let's go to one about
Stella. That's okay. That's okay. When is a friend, she won't mind me taking her place for a while. Okay, so hello everybody. So glad you could be here. I mean, as my moderator said, that there are 5 other, amazing sessions going on, and then still to have so many people here. Really, really glad. Maybe okay. How do I switch that off? Oh, there is a button here. Yeah. Okay. Is that? I'm not quite sure. Okay. So I'm Stella Paul. I'm from India. I'm everywhere person, and right now I'm based in the central southern part of the country in a city called Hyderabad. And while my family actually comes from a province that borders China and Myanmar and Bangladesh. So we are kind of in between, a lot of international borders, which come, have their own complexities, and being a journalist out there in itself is a sign of bravery. I became a journalist quite a few years back, 10 years to be exact, but in the beginning, first few years, I was just a newsroom journalist doing more of copy work. And then in 2011, I quit my job, and then I became a field reporter because I wanted to tell stories. And I feel like I was born to tell the story, and what I mean by that is that I'm kind of a miracle child. When I was 8 months old, my family tried to kill me because in India, children are not appreciated. If a family has one girl child, they don't want another one. And my family already had 2 girl children, and I was the unfortunate third one. Except for my mom, everybody else was against me. They didn't see why I should live. And there was this incident where I was sick, and the medicine was very costly, and it wasn't available there in the province where my folks lived back then. And it took them 2 days to get the medicine, but then my family, the rest of my relatives, they destroyed the medicine. And but I didn't die because my mom was a very courageous woman. And then she ran out of the house, she looked around, she found a doctor, a very old doctor, and who performed a very crude but surgery with very little resources that he had, but he managed to save me. And that's the story. So at the end of the day, actually, if you are dead, dead people don't tell stories. Because I'm alive, I could tell the story of my mom and of myself. And that's the gist of everything that I do, and everything that now I teach, and I tell to the girls and women that I mentor, that you have to stay alive, at any cost. That's one thing. With that, now, in 2012, I started reporting, and what I report is I look at climate change from a gender lens. When I say gender lens, it's not just women, but also the third gender. But of course, women are, they are like, the 90% of my stories are on and about women. And these are not women from the extremely marginalized and extremely vulnerable communities. And I cover South Asia, so that means I go beyond the country. And I also train women into cell phone journalism, and a lot of share with them a lot of security tips, and drawing from my own experiences, because I consider myself as the person that I write about. So every time I go out there and tell a story, I live the story again and again and again, because apart from surviving an attempted infanticide, I am also from a family of climate refugees. My family lost all its property and home because of constant flooding. I grew up every year, at least for 2 months, we would be forced to leave our home and live in an elementary school because our home would be flooded. And I lived on food supplies given by the government at subsidized rate. Actually for free, sometimes we would still buy at subsidized rate, but yeah, so that's where I come from. And I lived in a mud hut. I studied without electricity. It's only when I was in 8th standard that we had electricity in my home. So for me, now when I go back on the field and I do the stories, I don't feel a difference, a bar between me and them. It's all us, it's all me. I'm them and they are me. And so when I train women, I tell them the things that have worked for me, because I believe that these are the exact same things that they're facing, and these are the exact same things that they could help them stay alive another day and maybe tell a story. So with that, I want to begin. I just want to share like 5 slides just to give you a kind of a picture of what I report about and what kind of threat. And I will, first let me tell you that there is no fixed strategy of survival. For me, it's just constantly evolving, because I connect the dots between health and livelihood and trafficking and slavery and human rights and gender equality and finance and the lack of it, corruption, everything, and climate change. So it's a lot of issues, and you don't know what's going to be the next story about. And so you cannot be just prepared, and there is no hand-me-down in one-size-fits-all kind of strategy. You have to evolve every time, and you have to be prepared a little bit, learn something from your latest experience. There are 4 slides actually, and these are the 4 specific stories that I did. And every time I came back learning something, and that's exactly what I wanted to share. So this is the first slide. This is the first ever major investigative story that I did in my life, and that was in 2012, and that story was published by Thomson Reuters Foundation, one of the 2 outlets that I report for. And as you see, this is actually the context is climate change. Drought drives rural Indian women to city sex trade. When I went to do this story, there's a little bit of background on why I picked up this particular story. So I said that I turned a journalist, actually, a field reporter with this story. Before that, I was in the newsroom. I was doing video editing. I was doing copy editing, and I used to watch a lot of news. And if you probably have heard about this, that there are more than 100,000 farmers have committed suicide in past 2 decades in India because of drought and drought-related issues. For example, crop failure, they take loans from bank and then they cannot pay it back because the crop has dried, and so they go kill themselves. So around 2011, 2010, we have a big report that comes up. It's a big source of data for us journalists. It's called the National Crime Records Bureau. And NCRB data is the most credible data and also the most pan-national data that we look forward to. So the report came out, and that there was a major spike in the death rate, in the rate of suicides among farmers. And the media was covering it in great details, great coverage. But as a person, I was just, because that's where I come from, I was just wondering. And I grew up in a family of women because my dad worked in the Middle East, in the Gulf countries. And typically my mom had to bring up 4 girl children on her own. And so every time something happens, my first question is, okay, so how do women deal with that? How does it affect women? So my question was obviously like, okay, so the man commits suicide, it's tragic, but then what does the woman do? I mean, how is she dealing with this? The husband is gone, and then she must be having a family, and the crop has already failed, so what happens to her? And we know how bureaucracy works. Even if there is a compensation, announced by the government, it's not going to go to them like, in a day or 2. It's going to take its own time. There is a procedure to follow. So from there came my curiosity, and then my curiosity, I was like, okay, so where do I begin with? And I was lucky that at that time I chanced on a second report that was from the National AIDS Control Mission, and that report showed that there was a significant spike in the numbers of commercial sex workers in the city that I live in now, in Hyderabad. And I was curious if there is a link between the two, because there was a lot of suicides that happened in the state, in the districts that surround the city as well. So from there on, I tried to contact, of course, the research part was very long, but when I went to do this story, the threat that I had faced, I wasn't sure. I knew it would be difficult to get the data because nobody really goes down into the sex workers community, unless you are from the health mission or you are working for WHO or some sort of other organization. Journalists normally don't cover, sex workers, and at least until then, I hadn't come across a single report that, that tried to explore the link between climate change and commercial sex work. Yes, so that was the story, and the threat that I had faced was that there was a group of clients, probably the men's, and they had threatened me because I had to keep going and coming back to get my story. I had met like around 60 to 70 sex workers to get my story. So the lesson that I learned from there is, take your own time and plan your story in a way that you have room for multiple visits to the people that you want to cover. And make several trips, give it some time. That was number one. This is the second story is about land grabbing, okay? So because there's huge river erosion, it's in the province that my family comes from. It borders Bangladesh, and that's where, because the land is eroding, farmers are selling off their land. And a lot of local businessmen, they are grabbing that land at throwaway price, or sometimes they're just threatening them. When I went to cover this story, and I was stopped. I was traveling in a small, what we call the auto rickshaw in Thailand. They call it tuk-tuk. And I was stopped, and there were a gang of men, and they were all working for a local brick factory owner. And they took my phone and they threw it away in a river. And they said, "You see that phone that just went into the river?" And things just disappear like that. And it wouldn't take long before a person disappears. So it took me again some time to complete this story. The lesson that I learned from there was that give some time, make some effort to make good local connection. Because my tuk-tuk driver was my savior that day. Because he was there, he started arguing with them, and every time he would shout louder and louder. Later I understand it was just to get people from nearby field and others. So people actually stopped when they were traveling, and then, I got help, and I could tell my story. The third one, so this is about Indian Maoists give green light to, land restoration efforts in India. This is perhaps one of the biggest, the most complex stories that I told in my life, and the threats that I faced, actually, I could write a book, but because it took me quite a few days. But the biggest lesson that I learned was that, there is one thing that do not carry, your devices, because the situation won't allow you. So avoid being spotted and dress like a local. Do learn some local language wherever is possible. And again, make great local connections. And the other thing that I learned is that data is so important. You cannot, because for this story I got 0 statistics and 0 data from the government. Because this is a conflict zone, war zone, no government official goes there to collect data. So I had to completely depend on the primary data that I had collected by talking to the community. And so do visit different places and do collect and do ask and verify the data again and again and again. You may not get good secondary data, but the primary data that will get you, it will help you tell a great story. And of course, here I had to mingle around like a local tribal person, and I had to stay day and night in their villages and avoid the security forces that were patrolling that area. Not all of that was good experience, but I was able to tell the story, and that's what matters. Slide 4. This is the story where, again, I was almost killed. Because you see that crane behind that woman? That is a crane digging out, sand. Illegal sand mining is going on in that river, which kills a river. And it is banned. It's completely illegal. And that lady, she has started building a new local movement where they're stopping that illegal sand mining. And I was there, I was talking to this woman, and I didn't know that that crane was aiming my head, actually. It was crashing down on me. And just a few more seconds and I would have been dead, actually. So from there, my biggest lesson that I learned is that because I'm a freelancer, I don't have the luxury of a newsroom and an editor and a team watching my back. So do watch your own back. And how do you do that? Make great local connections, because they will watch your back. That's what I learned. And this is my latest one. It happened just 3 days back. I'm just back from this area, which is on the Indo-Tibetan border in the Himalayas. And this is not part of a story yet, because I'm just writing the story. And you see the picture that shows there is a landslide. Actually, we were traveling, and the car just before me, was completely smashed and mangled, and 4 people died right in front of my eyes because there was a big rock fall. So there will be some threats that you can't do anything about. But then what can you do when you have been there? Make an effort to make sure that you do get a story. So I was stuck there by the landslide. I couldn't move forward. I couldn't come back. So what I did is I took a break and I hiked and I went to a village, and then I tried to get some stories of the local women. And my story was, there will be other angles to it, but one was that how do local women deal with this kind of threats, constant landslide, constant. And then I discovered that they do undergo a lot of psychological trauma, and I don't think anybody's talking about it yet. So these are the 5 experiences I wanted to share along with my 5 big learnings. I will share more if time permits. Thank you.
Thank you. So the lesson is understand the local situation and have good local connections. Parachute reporters is hazardous, won't work, right? And then the second lesson I heard from you is that make the best of the situation. You get into trouble, your first story is gone, it didn't look like you get that story. Well, get what you can and make the best of a situation. Now, one thing, but I'm not hearing, is it anything particular to women journalists? Because it seems, what you said seems to be very generic. It could happen to anybody. Maybe with the sex slave with that story, maybe actually women may have an advantage in that you have access. Is that right? But then maybe very briefly, tell us, like Stella Paul, but what's particular about threats to you as a woman journalist? Any special? Or yeah. Yeah, why don't you grab that?
I would say the threat, I think it happened to both men and women when it comes to working on sensitive stories, except that if it happens to, if it comes to kind of physical kind of scuffle, then the woman might have a hard time to do that, to fight with men. So I haven't had any kind of problem that I would kind of, somebody would say, oh, I will physically hurt you. I mean, the civilian,
How about sexual harassment?
I never faced that. I'm kind of lucky.
Stella?
So my story would be completely different than Bopha's. Because for me, there hasn't been a single time that I have been on the field and I haven't been threatened with. I have not faced a situation where somebody is trying to touch me or molest me. And the fact that there is this situation where men, they take it for granted. They believe in their heart that because I'm a woman, so I can be intimidated. And I can sense it the way they say, they speak in local language, and they use all kind of derogatory languages where they say, you are just a woman, if you are sold, you won't even fetch, 5 rupees, that kind of language, okay?
So what do you do?
So what do I do? Not very different. One thing is that, okay, first thing you stand your guard, you don't appear cow down. That's not much different than what you would do when you are in your city or you are in your own neighborhood or you are at your home. And the second thing is that, it does sound, again, I don't know how it sounds, but we exactly do, this is kind of a strategy that you try to dress down as much as possible. You try to, I try to be culture appropriate. I cover myself as much as I can because the whole idea is that I don't want the conversation to go away from here. If I am trying to get the local community, local women to stand and support me in what I'm doing, I must be as close to them as possible. And I can do that by dressing, by talking, by eating the way they do. And that's my strategy. And that does help. One thing. The other thing, I don't know if I can, it's probably not quite a threat, but it is harassment. That as women journalists, there are no toilets, yeah? You can pee, and you can go to toilet, and if you do, you have to go, and there are no trees, come on. We say that going into the bush, where is the bush? There are no bushes, they're all cut down. It's all cleared. So what do you do then? And there are, if you open the newspapers in India, there are stories where every day young women are getting raped because they had to go, to do their business in the open. And so again, what's my strategy? Yeah, I connect with the local women. So where I travel with them, the 4 stand guard when I go, whether it's behind the bush or whether it's, behind, maybe kind of a fence or something. But it is difficult because there are like hours and days, sometimes 24 hours when you are traveling and there are nowhere you can go. You can take a, break, loo break. So, but yeah, and the rape, that is very, very, unfortunately, this is something fortunate and unfortunate that you grew up with. Because I mentioned the province that my people comes from. There was an undeclared war-like situation. It's a conflict zone. And there are a lot of molestation and a lot of sexual harassment and sexual attacks against local women that are perpetrated and carried out by the army itself. And there are huge movements going on against that. So we did grow up in that situation. We were always told that when you see the army, retreat. Don't go there unless you really, really have to go, face them. Don't go out alone. Be with them. Now, I can't be with my sisters, so what I do is I forge a bond of sisterhood with the local women, and then I go out. I talk with them.
So again, work with the locals, know the local situation, and have people out there help you, be your defense. All right, okay. Maybe we'll open up to questions here. You're welcome to share your experiences and also raise questions. Identify yourself.
I'm Namrata Sharma, Center for Investigative Journalism, Nepal. Actually, an observation. Both of you have said everything so openly and factually. I think it's something that is faced by every journalist who tries to cover the issues that you have been covering. The other thing is, I actually want to thank Stella that you openly shared, both of you actually, the personal things that you faced, you know. And what I wanted to add here is, together with journalists covering these issues, women human rights defenders actually face this harassment every day in life. And they've been killed, they've been kidnapped, and they have been harassed in every form, you know, whether it's mentally, sexually, physically, or even just, you know, like in a very subtle way, you know, how to move ahead. And one thing of, I mean, especially when you start covering issues like the one we are talking about today, together with journalism, activism comes in, you know. And how do we deal with that is another question you have to have. So I think it's very good for, very important for both to keep in touch with each other and have a strong network to back, so that whenever we go to the field to cover stories, or when we do defending activist activities, we have journalists backing us. You know? So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you. Over there. Oh, all right. And then you.
Hello, I'm IJAsia16. I'm a correspondent for NHK World. So both of you spoke about threats and harassment in field. But what about threats and harassment inside the office? For us women journalists, it's not easy working inside the office as well. What about that? How do we deal with that? Because I personally have faced my male colleagues, you know, you're wearing a skirt today, your legs look nice. Oh, you've cut your hair, it accentuates your neck. I mean, how do we deal with that? Yeah.
Harassment inside the office? You're freelancers now, right?
Yeah, but I was a newsroom journalist.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't experienced that, like harassment inside the office, but I would say if that case happened to you, inform it to your superior immediately, and not 1 to 2 or 3.
Most supervisors are men.
Still, and then if you cannot inform this to your superior, then find your local NGO who support women. That's the only advice I could give you. Or go to the police. That's it. And if you go to these 3 things and it doesn't help you, I mean, I don't have any magic to tell you. I don't have anything. Well, the threat that I face, it's different. Like I more into like light threat. And actually, I haven't really shared with you my experience how I managed to get out of that kind of situation yet. But I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, so I worked in a newsroom before I became a freelancer. And let me tell you that my experience in the newsroom was also one more reason why I gave up. And I would share, actually I do understand, there was shared this typical experience where there was a big road show because the general election was coming up, and we had to cover it live. And the management, our seniors were actually selecting a team that would go and cover this. So this road show would go through 5-6 states and hundreds of kilometers. So and go into like multiple days. So there was this group. There were 6 men, and then there was me. And I was told by the instructor that okay, they will do the this piece and that piece, and they will cover this component, and you just go and you look beautiful. You try to dress up. That was the exact thing he said. I could protest, I could say something there, but one thing was that I was way too junior, and probably I didn't want to, reply by talking. So what I did was I did go on that show, and I became friends with the 6 other men. One man I couldn't, because he wouldn't he was not interested in coming down to our level. 5 I was great friends with, and then we shared our jobs. So I didn't have to be beautiful. I could be a journalist. But let me tell you that time does change. The second thing is that if you can endure and if you can tell a few good stories, then people will change as well. The sixth journalist who was back then wasn't interested in me doing any important work, today comes to me and asks me for if there are any good projects going on, if I could direct him, if I could help him, with this story, with that. So things do change.
So do your work, produce good journalism. Well, one contribution there?
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Sahar. I'm from Afghanistan. I just want to share some experiences, like a few. Our experiences are just a little bit different from yours, and the reason why I actually came here was that I wanted to know how to deal with harassment when it comes to storytelling and when we are telling stories of women in our countries and all of that. And I'm surprised that our experiences are different, but for us, women of Afghanistan, most of the times, it doesn't matter It does matter if a man tells a story or if a woman tells a story. For example, if I want to talk about, for example, street harassment or about issues related to women's sex or women's menstruation, to issues that are a little bit taboo, I face a lot of challenges. Not only from like men outside in the street. Social media, I face the same thing from men who are actually my colleagues, men who are in the university, educated men, and like harassment is in all different levels. But it doesn't happen, the same thing doesn't happen to men. If a man wants to say something, they can say it, and they were never scared of, or in the back of their mind, they're not scared of being raped by someone. But that threat is in our mind, and somehow we always get that. And that's why I wanted to actually know if such cases are real in other places too, or if you have any recommendations for how we can stay stronger and braver and just like move on with our work without having we do have this stress, but not like giving up our work for these things. Thanks.
Well, I think that if you plan to do some kind of controversial story, for example, if you plan to do the story that you know that you might get killed after that, then you should tell somebody, like you should start to create connection with other people outside the country, and you get some kind of like a trip abroad, and then you can publish a story while you're abroad. I mean, but that is a very, very difficult situation. You have to really think hard about what is the benefit of having that story published. Is it worth it? Is it gonna give like a lot of thousands of people benefit, or just like about one particular person? So you have to weight it. See what I mean? And the other thing is that, I mean, when it comes to my my story, I had this kind of life threatening. So the things like the same, like her, even though they threat you, they shot at you, but finally, if you want to really get out of that situation safely, you have to make friends with them, smile at them, even though they kill one of your friends. Just smile, pretending you are, it's okay now, pretending that you did not see it. Until you get out of that situation.
Or as the journalist, I'm talking about all women, for example, who want to tell stories that should be told by women or by anyone, but women are the ones who are closer to get that. But how long should we pretend that, we're friends with them? But it's like actually like sexism, it's everywhere, and you get that from your boss, the organization, all the men around in your country, and educated, uneducated, in different levels. Of course, uneducated.
Maybe I can
Sure.
chip in on that. I think the bottom line is that you need to be a good journalist. That's why you come to conferences like these. You learn the tricks of the trade. When I worked in the United States a long time ago, the newsroom is very male. And I'm not only a woman, I'm also an immigrant. I'm also colored. I'm not white. So
3 strikes. But on one hand, also they need me because they're the only Chinese-speaking reporter in the newsroom. Right? And I deal with immigrants, right? So I think in the newsroom situation, you figure out what's your niche, what you can bring to the table, right? And in the scale of things, when you do a story, what can you bring to the table to do the story? And so, for instance, one time there was a big killing in Chinatown. This is very famous, daily news, columnist, white, man, and said, want me, tell the editor they want me to go with him to Chinatown to do the story. And I said, very nicely, I smiled, I said, I'm sorry, I'm going there to do my story. I'm not going to be your interpreter, right? So I think it's very hard to give specific answers. We talk about tips, but a lot is really common sense, which is not common, right? And a lot comes from life experiences. Have like these reporters, you went through a lot, and as you gain experience, then you kind of you know how to size up the situation, how far you should go, how much you should push, right, and how much you should just duck, right, and stay safe. Right. So
yeah, and the other thing
helps.
I want to add is that when you are in that kind of situations, and when people threaten your life, and if they ask you for anything, your laptop, your camera, or anything like that, give them all those stuff, lie first, and don't bring the camera or the computer that has a lot of document in it. Don't bring the old memory that has a lot of stuff in it, and bring cheap phone that works well with the battery and stuff. Make sure that your phone install very powerful people that could help you when you face this kind of life threatening.
That's very good advice. When you go to dangerous situation where you may get arrested, may get into trouble, bring a clean laptop, clean camera.
Yeah, I also wanted to say something that, journalism, it's sad that nobody should be killed or harassed for just trying to tell a story. Unfortunately, that's what it happens, that people are getting killed. And that's why journalism is not for the weak heart. It's for people who have a lot of bravery in them. And when you do feel a situation, there is no magic wand. There is no way to just wish things away and make things really perfect. So there will be such situations. You will feel difficulties. You will feel challenges. But at the end of the day, you have to take a call. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be the journalist who stays safe and wait for the situation to allow itself, or do you want to go a step extra and tell a story, and taking some risk? Having said that, I would add a little bit of what the Ying and Bob has said. I was detained once on the Indo-Nepal border, and that was because I had just interviewed a few ex-Maoists in Nepal, and they had given me a CD that had the raw unedited footage of them attacking the army back in the revolution days. And although I didn't have a laptop or a big camera with me, that CD was something that was fished out by the security people, and I was detained for 8 hours. And I never thought that I would live another day to tell the story. But so what I learned is that do not look into your bag and think where you are going. And do not carry anything that might put you at an extra risk, because going on the field in itself is a risk. The other thing that I say is networking. Namrata just mentioned this. She's gone now. But network, and look for safe networking zone. And I'm part of 2 great networking zones. One is the DART Center of Trauma and Journalism. And the second one is called World Pulse, which is for the women, by the women, and it's worldwide. And I have lots and lots of colleagues from Afghanistan. I have trained some in Afghanistan. They are from Afghanistan, and they are now telling their stories, of course, in different things. The third and the last one from my side would be that we are living in an age of multimedia, so do use multimedia components. You do not just have to be a writing press person or a video person. I do photography for each of my stories, so I'm a photographer, I'm a reporter, I do social media, and you have all others, you have video, podcast. So if this is your difficult zone, go and try another component where maybe you can tell a story more safely. Thank you.
There's an intervention by a man. Yes, yeah. Let's give him the mic.
Hi, my name is Shantanu Guhare. I work for a European-wide agency based in Delhi. I've been listening to this very, very interesting conversations all around women harassment at workplace. So let me remind you that in India, which is the world's biggest zone for growth so far media is concerned, one of the finest editors and the finest writers embroiled in a sex scandal, Paul, has already served 8 months in jail. He's out on bail. I want to ask from you, what do you do when cases like these erupt and it splits the society? Bulk of Tarun's support actually came from women journalists, and very few actually sided with the person who had actually alleged the rape. So situations at workplaces you can handle. You can make complaints and all of that. What happens in high-profile cases? How do you handle that?
As for me, because I don't cover high-profile cases, I cover the most unsexy, unwanted stories, and the people. So.
Answer?
High-profile cases?
Yeah. I'm talking of in India, which is a very, very highly sensitive and a political state. High-profile cases obviously draw a lot of attention.
So
and in this case, the entire media was split wide open. And it was first time India actually saw how vulgar it could be. So that's an eye-opener. This particular case has been taken as a case study by international universities. The Tehelka case, and Tehelka, don't forget, it was one of India's finest investigative magazines. So these kind of situations, how do you handle it?
Well, I think like other high-profile cases, you have high-profile, so-called high-profile cases in Egypt, in conflict zones, and you use it to educate. You use these cases to raise consciousness and tell people that this is not allowed. This harassment, threats of women journalists is not allowed. And then sometimes you have the women themselves, women journalists, who are brave enough to come out and speak of their ordeal. I think that should be supported. And by the end of the day is building the community, building the network, building a culture of support. And then for mutual aid, right? When there's no support around, when like newsroom managers are insensitive to threats. Like when I work in media in New York, when I was at a Chinese paper, when I was threatened by gangs, and the editors say, "Oh, okay, Ying, be careful." All right, okay, be careful, right? And then when I was lucky enough to work with a more established newsroom, the editor would hire bodyguards for me round the clock until the kind of crisis was solved, right? So I think we need the individual. We need to be smart, but we also need to make demand on newsrooms to protect, right? To do their duty to protect their journalists.
I would like to add to her. So if it's in the case of freelance journalists, then you have to talk to the person you provide the story to if they have any kind of mechanism to help you if you have any kind of problem. And the other thing is that if you choose a newsroom that you're going to work there for like a few years or 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, I think it's the best idea to research that editor's reputation or executive editor reputation. Search the reputation of that newsroom before you decide to get in. That's what I did. So when I had that kind of...
you have a choice. Sometimes there's no choices. People want a job.
When there's no choice, you have to be alert yourself all the time. You have to be smart. You have to be like that.
Time is running out, and wow, we have some questions. One line, one question, make one point, right? 30 seconds, and we'll take everybody. Over there, we just make a statement. I'm sorry. We'll go fast. 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, and then we'll continue after.
Hi, I'm Esther, and I work for the Associated Press. I'm based in Myanmar. And I was expecting a little bit more about, related to women, because it says women in investigative journalism, because I believe that every journalist faces threats and harassment in any country. So I have questions about your experiences, because in Myanmar, there are things that the society doesn't agree, that women cannot do this, women cannot do that kind of stuff. For example, I'm a tax reporter, but I have to go for a reporting trip, and sometimes I have to take pictures. Okay. And once I was
okay, we got it, understood.
Go straight to the question.
For Asian countries, we do have particular cultural issues. All right. Okay, I'm sorry. We can continue the conversation later, but I have to move on. This lady, quickly. She's 30 seconds. Make your point.
It's a question.
Okay.
Question on a statement.
Well, these two also are too humble to say that they're both International Women's Media Foundation Courage and Journalism Award winners, because they are so courageous. My quick question is, what are the very practical security things that you're doing? Like, when you're going to the field, who are you checking in with? How often are you checking in with them? Are you making those kinds of concrete security plans before you go?
Okay, I'm not sure we can get to the answer. Yes,
yeah. Hello, this is Wendy from China. So my question is that we are always discussing about danger and difficulties to be a female journalist. My question is for Ying and Stella. Do you think that women have special advantages or strengths to be a journalist, to do investigations? Thank you.
For women?
Yeah, women.
Women. Yes or no? Advantages and disadvantages, right?
Yeah,
okay. Any other? Yes.
Do you get a lot of abuses and threats online on social media? And do you think social media has made you more vulnerable to these harassment and threats?
Social media, yes. Hate speech, trolling.
Just to end on a positive note, if you speak to American female journalists who cover Africa and the Middle East, they say it's actually a benefit to be a woman, because they can, wear the niqab. Men don't look at them. They get a little bit more respect. Whoever they're interviewing, if it's a general or whoever, they'll look down. They get a little bit more respect. And I don't know if it's because they're American or if it's because the culture in Africa and the Middle East, but just something positive to say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Final, last one. Yeah. I think we touch a raw nerve, right? This can go on and on. Yes.
Muhayya Nazimova, freelancer from Tajikistan. How did you cope with danger when it take with your family members?
Oh, family person. I guess even more dicey, more difficult. But our time is up, right? I'm sorry that we couldn't continue. But obviously, we touch a raw nerve. This is a very important issue that needs to be dealt with. And I would suggest people check out the DOT Center. They have a training programs. They openings for a DOT fellow to attend program at Columbia University. So check it out and apply. Global Post and others have developed a protocol for newsrooms to respect freelancers, not to put them in dangerous situations. So there are things going on. Try to deal with the issue. We can have a day going into specifics, going into what to do, what institutions can do. But Thank you very much for the today conversation. Let's give our panelists a hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And keep up with the good work, right? And conversation will continue. Thank you.
We are here for next 2 days. So, like for example, how do you deal with the threats against your family? I have specific experiences. I would love to share anything that you want to know. Just catch me anytime, tomorrow or day after, and we can have a discussion on that. Thank you.
They have much more to tell, but they're very, very marvelous.